Welcome to the Mind.
What do we really mean by genius?
Matters.
Giftedness is so much more than an academic label.
Podcast.
We tend to think of gifted as kids being good at everything across the board.
An exploration of giftedness.
Originals are nonconformists.
Creativity.
People who not only have new ideas.
Intelligence.
They're the people you want to bet on.
In childhood.
I like to learn about things, but I like to learn my way.
And beyond. This is the Mind Matters Podcast.
Hey everyone, this is Emily Kircher-Morris, and I've just returned from the National Association for Gifted Children Conference, and this week we're doing a quick bonus episode with a few of my reflections from the conference. Next week, we'll release a full episode and be back on track to release an episode every other week through the end of the year. The NAGC conference in Albuquerque this year didn't disappoint. I attended a wide range of excellent sessions and connected with old friends. I met some new friends, including some of our loyal listeners, and started planning with some experts who are going to be future guests on the podcast. There was a theme that I noticed was carried across sessions, but it wasn't one that I was expecting. I'm not sure if anyone else picked up on it, but I think the connections are really relevant to us as we do our work in the field of gifted education. The first session I attended where I heard this particular theme mentioned was in the mini keynote sessions on Friday morning. I attended Ronald Bagato's session on creativity. Ron researches creativity and is the author of Beautiful Risks: Having the Courage to Teach and Learn Creatively. Ron's session emphasized the difference between creatively teaching and teaching creativity. As parents and teachers, it's uncomfortable for us to see our students not sure about what they're supposed to do. But it's in this space that creativity happens. If we have a project for our kids to do, and we give them step-by-step instructions to complete it, are we really allowing them to be creative? Or is creativity better fostered by letting them figure out the path on their own? Uncertainty is the key. When we step back and allow people to be uncertain, we give them room to creatively problem solve. We give them the gift of knowing that there are many possible solutions to any given problem instead of only one right answer. Uncertainty is a necessary ingredient in creativity. This connection to uncertainty, to not jumping in to answer kids' questions too quickly and allowing them to experience the discomfort that drives ingenuity, reminded me of an important concept that I frequently use in my counseling practice. One of the skills that mental health practitioners are taught is to use therapeutic silence. Therapeutic silence is used when a client says something, and then they're given time to process and reflect on the emotions of what they've said. It requires a clinician to step back and get really comfortable with what could also be considered a very awkward silence. But this is where people are able to reflect on their emotions and make their own connections. If I jump in, I'm taking away the opportunity for someone to make their own decision or find their own creative way to solve a problem. By giving them the opportunity to sit with uncertainty, I'm giving them the gift of autonomy. They then have the opportunity to creatively drive their own life. This theme of uncertainty, of being comfortable with not knowing, continued to crop up throughout the conference. During a panel discussion on anxiety in gifted youth, psychologist Ed Amend talked about how important it is to help bright kids be okay with not knowing what is going to happen in the future. There's no way to know exactly what is going to happen. There's no way to know if you're going to get an A on that project, or whether that person will say yes if you ask them to go to the dance, or if there's going to be a tornado when it storms. Trying to know the answer only leads us to dwelling and ruminating, obsessing, hoping for the right outcome. We have to be okay with knowing that we can't know. Anxiety is all about the what ifs. If we can teach our kids to sit with those what ifs, knowing they've done as much as possible with the pieces they can control, they'll be able to overcome that anxiety. The final event where uncertainty came up during a session was on confronting pseudoscience in gifted education. Scott Peters, Kate Snyder, Hope Wilson, and Matt McBee shared about the disconnect between research and practice in our field. They talked about how gifted education is an advocacy field, which often leads us to use anecdotal evidence to support our cause, even if the research doesn't necessarily support it. And unfortunately, research is rarely so clean-cut. The parable of the blind men with the elephant was brought up during the session. This is the story where several blind men are describing the characteristics of an elephant based on whether they were feeling the leg or the tail, the tusk or the trunk, etc. I'm a mental health counselor who works with gifted kids, so I see a lot of twice exceptional kids. But that doesn't mean that most gifted kids are twice exceptional. In the past, people might have thought that because students from diverse backgrounds weren't qualifying for gifted programs, white middle-class kids were just smarter. Anecdotal evidence would be wrong in this case, and uncertainty about those causes led to further research, which has given us a greater understanding of the disparities in gifted education. Parents, teachers, and researchers, we all see our own experiences up close, and it's hard to let go of those closely held emotional beliefs when they make so much sense for what we see day to day. Kate Snyder talked about how difficult it is to let go of something we know is true, even when the evidence shows us otherwise. Matt Makel was in the audience, and as all of us in the audience grew more aware of just how hard it is to sort through all the noise to find that big T truth in all of it, he asked in a half-joking manner to the panel, well, how do we filter through everything? How are we supposed to live our lives? Without missing a beat, Matt McBee offered this advice. Embrace the void. Skepticism needs to have a stronger gravitational pull for us. Here it was again, uncertainty, that it's okay not to know. Science is based in uncertainty. We're constantly collecting new and better data so that we can improve our practices as researchers, practitioners, and parents. It's okay for the answer to be something more than binary, and for us to look for shades of truth in the evidence that we do have. We have to question our closely held beliefs and be willing to replace them. You've heard the saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes. But change is hard. Change is uncertain. Anything new, anything that requires us to evolve is uncomfortable and, to say the least, uncertain. Creativity requires uncertainty. Overcoming fear requires uncertainty. And challenging the status quo, that too requires uncertainty. Author Mandy Hale writes, in the midst of all that uncertainty and lack of clarity, there lies a wild beauty, a hope, possibility, the promise of something bigger than us happening just beneath the surface that we can't see. So, take a moment to experience your own uncertainty, and let's allow our kids to experience it too. I'm Emily Kircher-Morris. I'll see you next time on Mind Matters.
Mind Matters is a production of Morris Creative Services.